Have you ever stopped to think about how a company sends out, say, 10,000 emails for a marketing campaign without their servers just catching fire? Well, today we're going to go under the hood of a high-volume email manager to see exactly how they pull it off. I mean, sending one email, that's simple, right? But sending 10,000, that is a whole different ballgame. It's a massive technical challenge. So how do you manage all that volume efficiently? How do you handle the failures that are bound to happen? And how do you give the user real-time feedback without bringing your entire system to a grinding halt? Yeah, it's tricky. To get some answers, we're going to break down the architecture of a real-world open-source project. It's called the Flask Email Campaign Manager. And what's cool is that it's a complete system designed to solve this exact problem. And, as you'll see, it uses some incredibly clever solutions. Okay, so first things first, let's really frame this problem. Because sending email at scale, it's not just about hitting send a bunch of times. No, it's more like this complex dance of scheduling, managing all the inevitable failures you'll get from email providers, and, of course, avoiding those performance bottlenecks that could just cripple your entire application. All right, let's dive in. And every great system really starts with the user. So before we get into all the back-end magic, let's take a look at the command center, the user dashboard. This is where things like clarity and real-time data are absolutely essential for the person who's actually running the campaign. The absolute key here is immediate feedback. You don't want the user guessing what's happening. So each user gets their own personalized dashboard, and it's got a live activity log. They can see sent counts, failed counts, a timeline of their campaigns. There's even a status indicator that lets them know the system is actually working. And all of this is updating every few seconds. Super responsive. Now, if you dig into a specific campaign, you get even more detailed analytics. Take this donut chart, for instance. It gives you a really clear visual breakdown of the campaign status. Sent, pending, or failed. And get this, the whole thing updates every 2 seconds. That's near instant insight into what's going on. And here we see another layer of just crucial detail. The system doesn't just say sent or failed. Nope, it tracks why. Were the emails bounced? Or, and this is super important, were they rate limited by the email provider? For the user, knowing the difference between those two things is absolutely critical. Okay, so the user has set up their campaign, they've crossed their T's, dotted their I's, and they hit schedule. What happens now? Well, this is where we leave the UI behind and head into the back end to check out the smart scheduling system that kicks this whole process off. The brain of this whole scheduling operation is a tool called Celery. Just think of it like a tireless dispatcher. Every 10 seconds, it wakes up, it scans the database for any email campaigns that are due to be sent, and then it kicks off the process. It really is the heartbeat of the entire system. Here's a small but absolutely vital detail: how this system handles time zones. So, let's say a user in New York schedules a campaign for 9 a.m. their time. To make sure it goes out at the correct moment for everyone everywhere, the system instantly converts that local time to UTC. That's Coordinated Universal Time. This little trick prevents all kinds of confusion and guarantees precision, no matter where you are. Okay, now we're getting to the core of the system. Celery has given the green light, so let's head into the engine room and see how thousands of emails are actually processed and sent without, overwhelming the server. So this is the 4-step pipeline that makes it all work. It's pretty elegant. First, the dispatcher grabs pending emails and groups them into these manageable batches of 50. Then, and this is the game changer, a worker sends all 50 of those emails using a single reusable connection. This avoids the massive overhead of creating 50 separate connections. It's a huge efficiency win. Third, it intelligently handles any errors that pop up. And fourth, it reliably logs the outcome of every single email. No guesswork. Let's zoom in on that third step, the error handling. When you send way too many emails way too quickly, the email provider's server will often push back. It'll send an error code, something like 451, which is basically its way of saying, hey, slow down. Now, a simple system would just mark this as a failure and give up. But this system, it's a lot smarter than that. And here is that smart solution. Instead of just giving up, the system automatically schedules a series of retries. It'll try again after 30 seconds, then again after a minute, and it'll give it one final shot after an hour. Only if it still fails after all that does it mark the email as a permanent failure. This is automated, intelligent error handling at its best. All right, so we've seen the user interface, we've looked at the scheduler, and we've dived into the sending engine. Now it's time to zoom out and look at the big picture, the architecture that ties all these smart components together into one truly scalable system. So the whole system is built on a really modern, robust tech stack. You've got Flask as the web framework and PostgreSQL as the database. But the real power couple here, the ones doing all the heavy lifting for background processing, are Celery and Redis. When a campaign starts, Flask basically tells Celery, hey, create these tasks. Celery puts them all in a queue, and then Redis acts as this super high-speed messenger, telling the background workers what they need to do next. It's a great team. When you really boil it down, the system's incredible performance comes from 4 key design choices. First, asynchronous tasks, which mean the app never freezes up on the user. Second, batch processing, which is just way more efficient than sending emails one by one. Third, reusing those connections, which saves precious milliseconds on every single batch. And finally, that smart dispatcher, which guarantees that no email is ever sent twice. You know, this entire system is basically an automated factory for sending emails. It just hums along in the background, handling all the complex, repetitive work. And that leaves me with one final thought for you. What's the hidden factory in your work? What's that complex, manual process you're dealing with that could be automated just as cleverly as this?